Hello, my name's Sophie D'Souza and welcome to my channel Sophie Stained Glass. Today I'm going to do an absolute beginner's tutorial on how to make this mirror with a border. Now you're going to see me lead it together, the next stage. Not forgetting, of course, little mirror in the middle. Before I do the leading, let's see, I'll move all this. I'm just going to draw on the outside lead because I was being a bit lazy. It's very naughty of me, but I'm going to do that now. And I'm looking for my pencil, which of course I can't find. What is it about pencils? Where do they go? Here we are. So, I didn't start with the parameters of this because it's just a decorative mirror. It doesn't have to fit in somewhere, so it ends up the size it ends up. Now I'm going to show you what you really should do and what you need to do before you start leading it up is accommodate for this outside piece of lead. So this is going to be forced up against two battens, which we call a jig, to keep it square while we make it. If we just cut our design out and pushed it against the battens now, we wouldn't have adjusted for this outside piece of lead. So what happens is this lead fits the glass like this. That's 2mm. This is a 12mm width of lead. So that means that this side is 5mm. So 5mm plus 2mm equals 7mm. And the other way of doing it is to simply line up, this is the don't use a ruler method, line up the heart of the lead with your line and then just mark up the outside edge of the lead. And that will show you where your lead is supposed to come to, your outside lead. And hopefully the next bit will make more sense during the demonstration. Now, the jig. So, you need some battens. And you line your batten up with your outside perimeter line. And you screw it in place. Right, ordinarily you would put a square in here to make sure that the jig you make is square. But you will remember, it's more or less square. You will remember that I based this on my mirror, which may or may not be square. So it doesn't really matter. It just has to fit the mirror. But there was only about 1mm in it, so, you know, it was more or less square. Okay, so there we have it. And that is our jig. Lots of people find jigs intimidating, but I hope you can see they're not. As I've said in one of my other videos, you're probably working on a piece of wood because you don't want to screw straight into your work surface the way I do in mine. You can actually leave it set up with this right angle of battens, and then every time you make your design you simply cut it out and butt it up against your jig, so you don't have to keep remaking your jigs. So if it is the sort of thing that intimidates you, find somebody more comfortable with this sort of stuff to help you, and once you've got it set up once, That will cover a multitude of windows. I'm now going to select my lead. I need 12mm for the outside. I'm going to use 6mm because I'm confident. You may not be as confident, and so you may want to use 8mm. 8mm will cover up your problems much better. So I've got my 12mm lead, which is my outside lead, as we discussed. Now you've stretched this, which means one person hangs on to one end with a pair of pliers and the other grabs the other with a pair of pliers, and then you pull apart. And so I'm going to cut off the sort of ugly end. Now I'm going to over measure because I'm going to trim at the end. Now I take my fid and I make sure that I get rid of the kinks. And I put that in place and I keep it there. So I keep it in place with my nails. So trim again. Now lift the corner, get rid of any kinks and slip it inside. Now again I overshot because I'm going to trim at the end. Okay. Now I put my first piece in, and then I've got my 6mm lead, and again I'm going to, everywhere there's a lead joint, I'm going to just lift up my outside lead. Because this is 6mm lead, I need to cut this strip here 2mm short, because, let me show you. When it comes to doing the piece of lead that will meet this, there we go, you see that? It covers up the edge. Now because it goes inside this outside piece of lead, you've actually got a bit of wiggle room, so you can cut it a bit shorter if you feel you need to, and just wiggle it about when you come to solder. A bit more forgiving. See, that one's much shorter, but I can move it up. Okay, 26, is that 26? Yeah, I think that's 26. Okay. So, I think you can see it's leading up really quickly. And it's getting much shorter now, so I'm going to recut actually. Oh, shall I? No, because I'm going to make this one a bit longer. And this is what I mean about when you do borders, it's amazing how they shrink stroke grow. You always have to make sure you've got it properly inside the flange. Sometimes you push it up against the lead, the glass that is, and you think it's inside, and it's not at all. It's just caught on the outside edge. Now, do you remember what I was telling you? I need to recut this piece of red glass so that my length is right. But I am not going to do that just yet. I'm going to do that once the mirror is in place and I'm absolutely 100% sure where I need it to end. So for the time being, I am going to keep that in place like that. I'm going to take another piece of lead now and I'm going to do this piece. So, like before, slip it inside the outside lead. It's got an ugly bit at the bottom, so I'm going to change that piece of lead. No need to scrimp. I'm going to cut it there. It's going to need cutting again, but I'm just approximately trimming it at the moment. And this will all become clear very shortly. Now, again, I'm going to lift up the outside lead everywhere there's a joint. And use my nail to measure and trim. With this nail, make sure you've pushed it nice and hard. Again, this will be trimmed, but I want to be sure of my measurements before I trim. So you have to just lift your glass slightly away from the bottom of your design. Now, and actually that's not too shabby, that fits quite nicely, and I'm just going to mark up where I'm going to cut. So I know that I need to come in a couple of mil for my lead. I'm going to do that there, and my glass needs to measure up with the bottom of my mirror. So on this side, my glass needs to measure up with the edge here. But again, I won't do that till I get actually to building that section, I think. Let's just have a look at how that's going to work. Okay. Just going to double check. Yeah, that's not too bad. I think I will trim that bit at the end though, I think. Or shall I trim it now? No, I'll trim it now. I'll be bold. So that's where we want the lead, and we want them to line up really. So I'm going to make this a bit smaller because this is, you can see it pushes in a bit. So I'm going to make it there. Okay. Now this is what you do. You slide it out, and with your cutter, and then you slide it back in. And I'm going to just cut this now, and I'm going to do it with a slightly different type of lead cutter. because this one goes down from above, so I don't have to pull it out to cut it. But it does squash the edges somewhat, so pick them up. Okay, so we'll pop this back in. Ooh. And we'll pop a nail back in. So, as you know, this lead is going underneath the outside lead, so you don't need to worry as much about the accuracy of the cut. I've got a mosaic just to the side here and I don't want to nudge it by mistake, so I'm trying to keep my leads short. And then this one will go in here. And again I will trim this when I've got the other bottom edge in. I'm going to put the outside lead on this side now, just to keep it all in place nicely. I'm going to trim off the ugly end. Measure it roughly, over cut. And I'm going to open up with my fid. Open up the top so I can slip that in, and you'll see I just slightly lift my glass inside the flange or the channel, because otherwise they get stuck and don't go all the way in. So okay, now we are going to look after this one. Do the same here that we did up in that corner. I am going to slide this out. Of course it doesn't come out as easily because it's being held in place by everything. It's got a horrible crease in the glass there, right where I want to cut it. What fun. Before I slide that in place, I'm going to bring this down and trim it, and then push it back up. And there we are. So there's me red. Just lift up these two corners. Like I say, a bit harder because it's being kept in place by everything much more now. There, that's better. Trim. And pop this in place. Now 20. I think I will Just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 19. Ah, that doesn't feel right. 18, 17, 16. Yeah, this needs trimming. Obviously you didn't cut it right. So I'll do that now. Now, for this final one, you've got to imagine where the heart of the lead is and cut so that it butts up with the heart of the lead. Now the last piece, no. So it's come up a tiny bit short, negligible though. We're going to cut it there. You may find that yours grows or shrinks far more, but by leaving the last piece till the end to cut, you can accommodate for that. Now the reason I've left these two long is that it's going to be easy to trim the length once this is in place. You want to measure this lead so that it will just tuck inside the outside lead. Get rid of the kinks. And you want to obviously open it up where it needs to be opened up. It's all a bit fiddly, but what you really need to be careful of is that the lead at the back, so the bottom edge of the lead, is really underneath the glass and underneath these little bits of lead that meet it. Now I'm not particularly happy with these leads. I'm going to just trim them a bit, and I'm going to trim them using this type of lead cutter because it's very good for trimming small sections. That's better. Right. That was stopping it going home, that longer piece of lead. My fid. So now I'm going to just press down my lead. There we are. Now that's a bit crooked, isn't it? Don't like that. So I'm going to see if I can just, going to use my oyster knife actually. That seems a bit better. Right, soldering iron on to the next bit.